Mr. Conley, are you in the...
Good afternoon, co-chairs McSorley, Zimmerman, and the distinguished members of the committee. My name is Gregory Conley. Before I introduce myself, please allow me to apologize for my attire. Delta misplaced my bag last night. It's back at my hotel now, but I had to go out this morning to pretty much buy everything I'm wearing. So I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect to the committee.
You look fine to me.
I've never worn jeans to a committee hearing in all my 5 years.
You're in New Mexico.
Yeah. No, feel free.
Mexico tuxedo is
And I'm
jeans and a tuxedo.
There we go. So I'm doing good.
and you're amongst friends. I'm an Aggie, so
Perfect.
kind of a cowboy engineer.
Perfect. I currently serve as the president of a nonprofit group called the American Vaping Association, which advocates for reasonable policies and science-based policies towards vapor products, otherwise known as electronic cigarettes, with the idea being that policies that serve to grow small and medium-sized businesses in this market will lead to more and more smokers quitting smoking or substantially reducing their smoking, therefore lowering their health risks and lowering the costs to state, local, and federal governments. It has now been, August 2010 was when I quit smoking with a vapor product. I had tried to use them before in the past. They didn't work. I tried to use a nicotine gum, patch, and lozenge, an inhaler. All those products didn't work. Just like, even though a prior presenter noted that those products are great and that they work, the actual data shows that 93 to 97% of smokers who try them on any given year, 1 year later, they will be back to smoking. I don't consider those products to be successful. They didn't work for me. They didn't work for the people in the room who are vapors today. And as such, I spent 3 years volunteering as the legislative director for the U.S.'s largest consumer advocacy organization for electronic cigarettes and vapor products, and formed the American Vaping Association approximately a year and a half ago. I am here to urge you to keep New Mexico in its current form as a state that welcomes small businesses and, most importantly, welcomes quitting by adult smokers by not subjecting smoke-free, tobacco-free, and often nicotine-free vapor products to new and unjustified taxes. We are now coming upon the 40th anniversary, next year in 2016, of Dr. Michael Russell writing in the British Medical Journal, a phrase that is now widely accepted in tobacco control and public health. Smokers smoke for the nicotine, but they die from the tar. This phrase has been endorsed by the current head of the FDA Center for Tobacco Products, Mitch Zeller, who in a hearing before the Senate Health Committee last year stated that if we could get smokers to switch to non-combustible cigarettes, i.e. vapor products, that would be good for public health. Now, unfortunately, as Dr. Nitskin went into, there are some activists in the tobacco control community that are used to painting this fight as black and white. And I can't blame them. Some of them have spent 20, 30 years fighting tobacco companies. But the picture today has a lot more color. The first item in my packet is a New England Journal of Medicine perspectives piece from a group of authors like Dr. David Abrams, Dr. Kenneth Warner, Dr. Frank Chalupa, arguing in favor of policies that encourage smokers to switch to far less hazardous smoke-free products. In fact, I bring up their names specifically because if you look at the website, for example, of Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids that essentially sets tobacco policy for cancer, heart, and lung, about a third or a fourth of their citations for the evidence showing that cigarette taxes help smokers quit, they're written by the authors of that editorial. Also, as Dr. Nitskin went into, Public Health England's groundbreaking 118-page report finding that the existing evidence shows that these are about 95% less hazardous than smoking, leaving some room for new science to come out, that they help smokers quit, that they are likely to confer far less nicotine dependency on users than cigarettes, which freebase nicotine. Okay. And also, most importantly, they note that we need the government to truthfully inform smokers that these products are far less hazardous because over the past couple years, due in part to propaganda from groups that oppose vaping, there are more smokers that now believe there is no health benefit conferred by them switching. So if you wonder why some smokers aren't making the complete switch, perhaps it's not that e-cigarettes don't work. Perhaps it is because public health groups are misinforming smokers and making them believe that these products could kill them just as fast as cigarettes. So no longer can groups like the American Cancer Society come up and with a straight face tell you that this is some sort of big tobacco-led conspiracy. It's not. And even if smokers aren't at the top, saving smokers' lives aren't at the top of your priority list, I'd encourage you to look at the second item in my packet. It's a study from State Budget Solutions looking at the costs of smoking to Medicaid, the costs of smoking to states. For New Mexico, it's around $1.5 billion in costs, $400 million of which is Medicaid costs. They look at how much money states would save in the long run if a massive amount of smokers switched to vapor products. I want to go over just a couple statistics, partially of which Dr. Nitzkin went over, so I won't repeat them. But new statistics on adult and youth usage from the CDC and NIH. 40% decline in youth smoking from 2011 to 2014 after several years of stagnation as e-cigarette use has increased. Adult smoking, meanwhile, CDC just put out a report about a month and a half ago. Adult smoking stagnated from 2005 to 2009, 19.1%, 18.8%, 19.2%. Meanwhile, from 2011 to 2014, actually rather the first quarter of 2015, adult smoking fell from about 19% to 15.4%. So we are seeing these products help adult smokers too. Last month, again, those CDC data show that for youth, about 45% of all teenagers who have used an e-cigarette in the past month, 45% of them have only vaped 1 to 2 days of the month. And I looked recently at data from Texas. We don't have the state-specific data for New Mexico yet, but in Texas, you had 2.3% of students who reported using an e-cigarette all 30 days of the month. 87.5% of them were smokers. 5% were never smokers. 7.5% have never smoked. To translate that into plain English, that's about 1 in 750 teens in Texas that are using a vapor product every day that have not previously smoked. So there is a lot of hysteria around this issue that the national level, 12% of those who have used an e-cigarette in the prior month have used all 30 days. We look forward to getting the data set from the CDC, because I assure you that that data from Texas will almost surely be replicated as far as very, very few non-smokers using this product habitually. Before I close, I want to bring up two consequences of taxing vapor products. The first is obvious. The small businesses in this room, the dozens of vapor shops in New Mexico, they're employing people. They run on slim margins. They will be negatively impacted. Whether you call it a user fee or a tax, it will translate the same way. More people either not using these products or simply choosing to go out of state, or more likely, go on the internet, where states have a very tough time controlling any sales. And a prior speaker seemed to say that there's no evidence e-cigarettes are helping smokers quit. She cited data from the CDC that came out last week, 2 weeks ago. That data showed that among all ex-smokers who have quit in the last year, 22% are using e-cigarettes. And so that doesn't even include people who used e-cigarettes in this past year and got off of them and cigarettes entirely. So 1 in 5 ex-smokers from the past year are currently using vapor products. And secondly, so you not only have less smokers quitting, but you'll have businesses closing. In my packet, DC, immediately upon enacting their tax, 2 of their 5 vape shops immediately decided, we're going to close our doors because we can't survive this. So gone is that rent money, gone are their employees, and gone for those smokers in that neighborhood is their opportunity to actually learn about these products and quit. With regard to what was stated earlier, Senator McSorley, with all due respect, you owe Dr. Peter Sandman an apology. I called Dr. Peter Sandman when I stepped out of the room earlier. He has never taken a dime from the tobacco industry in his life. New Mexico's constitution may protect you from slander cases in a state court, but Dr. Peter Salmon lives in New York, and this is being broadcast on the internet.
I'm sorry, but I didn't mention Dr. Salmon's name, I don't believe.
Sorry.
Mentioned a English doctor
Sorry.
who had published a report.
You mentioned two. You mentioned Dr. Peter Salmon and stated that he received tobacco money. And then you mentioned the English doctor. I think you may have been referring to Dr. Konstantinos Farsalinos out of Greece. Regardless, there is no public health researcher that has done intensive research on these products that has been published, that has taken money to appear in ads. So it's true, you may have seen a doctor that's favorable towards e-cigarettes quoted in an ad for an e-cigarette, but that does not mean that that doctor received any money for an endorsement.
But you're misrepresenting what I said. The representative from the tobacco company last year brought us a report, and he cited that report as saying that e-cigarettes were safe, but yet that same doctor. So it wasn't my citing just a random report. It was a report that was brought to us last year. So please don't misrepresent what I said, because that doesn't do us any good.
Well, let's be clear. Whatever that doctor you are referring to, he has never received money to appear in e-cigarette advertising. With regard to cardiovascular disease from nicotine, just in the past 3 years, the FDA has approved nicotine replacement therapy products to be marketed for long-term use by smokers who feel that without nicotine, they can't function throughout their daily life. There was great amount of evidence from the University of California, San Francisco, showing when it's smoke-free nicotine products, there is no significant increase in any cardiovascular disease, any cardiovascular problems. All that data is coming from cigarette smoking. There are vast differences. With regard to your question earlier about Big Tobacco owning e-cigarette companies, Big Tobacco owns about 7 of the 1,000 plus manufacturers in the country. They control perhaps 30%, 35% of the market. They control the cig-alike market, those products that look like cigarettes. The open vapor product, the choice among most smokers looking to quit, the products that have about, according to the studies, a 3 times better chance of helping daily users get off of cigarettes, those are all being made by independent companies. And in regards to funding, saying that people who receive funding from companies aren't particularly trustworthy, American Cancer, Heart, and Lung Association receive millions of dollars every year from Pfizer and GSK. Pfizer and GSK are on record in the EU lobbying against e-cigarettes, lobbying for harsh treatment. Their NRT products, their gum patch lozenge, suicide-inducing Chantix, they all compete directly with vapor products. So I'll just leave that. And again, I'll repeat, Dr. Peter Salmon has not received any tobacco funding. In conclusion, public health is about saving lives. It's not about Puritanism. It's not about disapproving of people's choices. It's about helping people live longer, healthier lives. Whether you call it a tax or a user fee, no tax, no user fee is justified on these smoke-free and tobacco-free products. If you want to focus on saving lives of New Mexico's 300,000 plus smokers, I recommend looking at the perspective in that New England Journal of Medicine editorial, where you have respected tobacco control scientists who have never taken a dime from the tobacco or e-cigarette industry saying that you need to focus on cigarettes, raise the taxes on cigarettes, make them less accessible. All that will bring down smoking rates and improve public health. But focusing on e-cigarettes will just lead less smokers to quit and more to continue using deadly combustible tobacco products. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for inviting me to testify.
We'll go to the panel. Any questions? No questions? Questions?
I do have one question. Mr. Conley, have you quit working for the Heartland?
Yes, I had a contract for 1 year. I did some work for them, and I had started spending so much time on AVA matters that it didn't make sense to continue.
That's all the questions I have.
And during that time, I actually became one of the largest enemies of the tobacco industry because I exposed many things about their FDA comments, many things about their activity behind the scenes in state legislatures. So I am no friend of the tobacco industry, as some of the people in this room could testify to.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.